Welcome to In the Middle. I'm Vykky. I'm a wife, a mom, and a leader shaping some of the world's most beloved brands. This is the podcast for all of us figuring it out in real time. In 20 minutes or less, let's get in the middle of it all. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to In the Middle. I am so glad you're here. So today I am sipping on Kona coffee. Starbucks has a coffee called Kona coffee that you can only get in Hawaii. And so I brought back a couple of bags, and that is what I'm sipping today. It's so good. This was just an Americano, which is usually what I will drink. I usually drink it iced, but I wanted something warm today while I filmed. So let's jump into it. What am I in the middle of right now? I cannot believe it, but we are getting ready to be in May. And after May comes June, and our oldest, Alasia, is graduating. So I am working on travel plans for us to be in Charlotte for her graduation. And since we're going to be on the East Coast, want to make sure that we can stop by and see my parents and some extended family and friends while we are there, since it is such a trek to get over to the East Coast. So what are you all in the middle of? How are you feeling? On a scale from 1 to 5, how is the week starting off for you? I hope that it is well. And if it's not going the way that you've planned so far, there is time to turn it around. Let's jump into today's episode. When I sat down and I started planning and scripting, I knew that I was rolling into a 2-part episode. So let's lock in. The next 2 episodes will be dedicated to this topic, because lately corporate America has been really loud. Between the conversations about Emma Grede, her new book, her podcast interviews, I'm aware that different topics will spur different feelings. But honestly, y'all, I think this is so much bigger than Emma. She is just our latest lightning rod on this topic. I feel like we continue to live in this never-ending cycle, debating remote work, hustle culture, and balancing motherhood for those of us who chose that path. And what's left in the wake are women trying to figure out what success is actually supposed to look like. There's so much noise. And honestly, a lot of it feels incomplete because these conversations are often happening in clips. There's a good chance that one of these clips brought you to today's episode, and I'm grateful for that. The problem with clips is that they often don't create space for a full context, and that matters, especially for Black women, because the truth is corporate America doesn't feel the same for all of us. I would love to see a panel of women from all different backgrounds, all different starts in life, come together to have a really fulsome conversation, because what I know to be true is we are not all starting from the same starting line. We are not carrying the same weight, and we are definitely not being evaluated at the same standards. And for those of you who may be newer here and we haven't had an opportunity to formally meet, maybe you didn't start at the beginning, for a little bit of my origin story, let me give you a little context for why this conversation is so personal for me and why I feel qualified to have it. I've spent my entire career in corporate America. I've worked across major global brands. I've led large teams, big budgets, and built a career in spaces where often a lot of people did not look like me. I'm a Black woman, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm ambitious, and I've spent a lot of my adult life trying to figure out how all of these identities can exist in the same room without one constantly being sacrificed for the other. I've had incredible leaders change the trajectory of my career by speaking my name in rooms I wasn't in. And I've also experienced the exhaustion of navigating bias, assumption, politics, and the invisible labor that comes with trying to succeed in systems that were not necessarily designed with you in mind. So when I talk about ambition, visibility, leadership, strategy, I'm not speaking from theory. I'm speaking from lived experience. I'm still in the middle of it. I'm still learning. I'm still making decisions in real time. But I've learned enough to know that hard work alone is not the whole story. And that is why this conversation matters. So yes, this is going to be a 2-part conversation. I want to handle it with as much care as possible. Part 1 is about reality, the systems, the visibility, the leadership dynamics, and the truths we have to acknowledge if we want to navigate corporate spaces wisely. Part 2 is about strategy, how to build a life plan first, how to decide what ambition actually looks like for you, and how to make career decisions that align with the life you actually want to live. Because y'all, I don't believe in blind hustle, but I also don't believe in pretending the game doesn't exist. Both things can be true, and that is what we're talking about today. At this point, you know I love data. I love to use it to make informed decisions about my life. So let's look at the numbers. In 2025, Black women's employment rate fell by 1.4 percentage points to 55.7%, one of the sharpest one-year declines in the last 25 years, according to the Economic Policy Institute. Some analysts reported that up to 600,000 Black women were economically sidelined. 600,000. That is sobering. It's hard for it to not feel intentional, and it is, the trend is going in the wrong direction, and it leaves me, unfortunately, with more questions than answers. And so I want to get into my 3 truths. My first truth: visibility matters. Let me be crystal clear. You have to do what's best for you and your family. Full stop. There are seasons where remote work is the right decision. There are seasons where flexibility is not a luxury, it's survival. And I never want this conversation to sound like I'm advocating for burnout, proving yourself through suffering, or pretending that everyone has the same level of access to childcare, support, transportation, or energy. That's not reality. But I also think we have to be honest about something. There are trade-offs. What I know to be true is that people advocate for people they know. People trust people they've had real interactions with. People remember people they've actually experienced beyond a virtual connection. And as women, and especially as Black women, we cannot afford to assume that great work alone will always speak for itself. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes your work is excellent, but if no one with influence sees it, it can stay invisible. I personally value a hybrid environment for that very reason. I remember in a previous role, I would get to the office pretty early, and there was a senior leader who would arrive at the same time. Sometimes I'd get there right before he would get there. We'd end up in the elevator at the same time. It started with small talk in the beginning, and eventually I noticed that he started asking me about the things I was working on, and he'd see something on social and he wanted my opinion. And then, we'd talk. I'd ask questions to get his perspective. He got to know me beyond my title and my immediate deliverables. And y'all, that mattered, because later, when opportunities popped up, like presenting to our executive team, being brought into bigger conversations, being trusted with larger visibility, it wasn't random. It was by design. There was already trust there. There was familiarity there. There was a confidence in that relationship, in my capabilities, because of the time that was spent. That access mattered. That visibility mattered. Performance gets you credibility, but visibility gets you opportunity. And I'm not saying it's fair, but it is something real we have to acknowledge. And I think sometimes we want career advice to be idealistic instead of honest. I wish every workplace rewarded output alone, but many don't. Proximity still matters. Relationships still matter. Being known still matters. It doesn't mean that you need to be in every single room, abandoning your boundaries. It means you need to be intentional. Because sis, if you are choosing distance, make sure you are also choosing strategy. How are people learning your value? Who is speaking your name when you are not there? Who knows your work? Who trusts your leadership? These are all the questions you have to ask when you make these decisions and when you're making these trade-offs of being physically present in the office versus being virtual or some hybrid version of that. Your career deserves more than hoping people notice. All right, let's jump into truth number 2. Leadership matters. I think sometimes we blame companies for things that are actually a leadership problem. Your day-to-day experience at work is often shaped less by the logo on the building and more by the person that you report to. A great leader can change your life. A bad leader can make even a dream job feel impossible. And I've experienced both. I've had leaders who've opened doors for me that I couldn't have opened myself. People who spoke my name in rooms I wasn't in. People who trusted me with stretch opportunities. I've had leaders who challenged me, developed me, and made sure my work had visibility. And candidly, the majority of those leaders have been white men and women. I think that matters to say out loud. Because sometimes these conversations get so flattened into extremes, and the truth is more nuanced than that. Allyship matters, advocacy matters, leadership awareness matters. Some of the most meaningful career support I received came from leaders who did not look like me, but they saw me. They were happy to sponsor, not just mentor. They were willing to create access, not just encouragement, and that made a difference. But I've also had leaders where I knew I was spending way more energy surviving them than growing under them. Leaders who created ceilings instead of pathways. Leaders whose bias showed up in really subtle ways that I sometimes felt like a crazy person and that I was creating this drama that wasn't actually there. Sometimes your company isn't toxic. Your manager is. And that distinction matters because people leave managers every single day. I wish we were a society that really leaned in on exit interviews and taking that information to really take action so that the next person's experience isn't the same. Your direct leader can shape your confidence, your opportunities, your compensation, and sometimes how long you stay in your industry. So yes, we should evaluate companies, but we should also be paying very close attention to our leaders. Ask yourself these questions. Who are they developing? Who do they naturally trust? Who do they advocate for? Who gets proximity? Who gets protected? Who gets promoted? Because leadership isn't just about performance reviews, it's about access. And if you find yourself in a leadership position, especially one where you influence hiring, promotions, visibility, or someone's career trajectory, check yourself. Check your assumptions. Check your bias. We all have them. No one is absolved from it. Check whose ambition you reward. Check whose mistakes you remember. Check who you naturally mentor. Because again, we all have bias. The goal isn't pretending we don't. The goal is to be honest enough to interrupt it. Someone's entire career may be sitting on the other side of your awareness. I'm not trying to lay all that pressure at your feet, but I do want you to understand as a leader the gravity of your position and the weight you do carry. Our final truth for today, truth number 3, strategy matters. And this is where I want to be really careful because I never want the conversation to turn into blame. I am not here to regurgitate what I feel like we're hearing all too often to women, especially Black women, that your career hasn't gone the way that you have desired because you haven't worked hard enough. That is simply not true. And that type of messaging is very harmful. There are real systems, real barriers. There are real inequities at play. But I also believe this: acknowledging your barriers should not mean surrendering your agency. Both things can be true. You are responsible for your career, but you are not imagining the barriers. That balance matters, and that is where the strategy comes in. Because not every opportunity is a good opportunity, and sometimes I say a God opportunity. Not every title is worth the cost. Not every company deserves your loyalty. I know our parents' generation, they wore it like a badge of honor to stick with the company for 30, 40, 50 years. I candidly believe those days are gone. Sometimes we are so focused on getting the job, we forget to ask, should I even want this job? What kind of people get promoted here? Who's sitting at the leadership table? What does representation actually look like? Not just on the website. Who is in the decision-making rooms? What does this company reward? What does this leader value? These are the critical questions as you pursue new roles, or even if you're auditing where you are today. Start asking yourself these hard questions and listen to your heart and your mind and your gut when you start to develop those answers. How do you feel? What are you uncovering? Maybe it's validation for a decision that you've been putting off, or maybe it's confirmation you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Sometimes we need the job. Absolutely. These bills are real. I totally get it. But even then, I pray that you go in with your eyes wide open. We spend way too much time at work to be in a constant state of fear, insecurity, instability, depression. No money is worth that day in and day out. And I pray that if you find yourself in that situation today, that another door opens up so that you can have stability and confidence and peace in your day-to-day life. I've had seasons in my own career where I leaned all the way in, I pushed through, I burned the midnight oil, I chased growth aggressively. But in the same way, I've had seasons where I've had to pull back, seasons where my priority was peace, my family, my health, my marriage, my children, my sanity. Neither season was wrong, but both required intentionality. Because if you don't decide what season you're in, corporate America will decide it for you. And y'all already know how I feel about not being in the driver's seat of your own life. That is a dangerous place to live. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is building career plans before we build our life plans. We often ask, what title do I want? Before we ask, what life do I want to live? Do I want flexibility? Do I want wealth? Do I want entrepreneurship? Do I want executive leadership? Do I want peace? Do I want to be deeply present at home? Because different goals require different decisions, and no one on Instagram, LinkedIn, or even a podcast can answer that for you. This is why I always say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. And I believe the same thing for myself. Everything you hear on my podcast, it won't resonate with you. It won't be for you. But I hope that the things that do, even the things that like maybe prick your heart or it makes you uncomfortable, you stay open enough and curious enough to explore, why does this make me a little bit uncomfortable? But if you sit and you process and you're like, that's just not for me, Godspeed. It's for someone. And maybe it's not for you in this season. Maybe in the next season, it could be for you. I think we need to learn from public figures. We learn from our mentors, learn from people that have gone ahead of us. But we have to stop making people our North Star. Their life is not your blueprint. Their strategy may not fit your marriage, the way you want to parent, your finances, your calling, your capacity. You need your own board of directors, people with different perspectives, people who know you and your life, people who can challenge your blind spots, and people who can help you make decisions with wisdom instead of emotion. Because success without alignment is just expensive exhaustion. And I think way too many women are living there. And that's really where I want to leave part 1 today. Not with fear, not with frustration, but with clarity. Because I never want these conversations to turn into hopelessness. I have so much hope. I have so much belief that the generation of women who have made the decision to be in corporate will leave it much better for the next generation, and we won't have to keep having these same conversations. Yes, the systems have flaws. Yes, bias is real. Yes, corporate America can be exhausting, especially when you are navigating as a Black woman, as someone trying to build both a life and a career at the same time. But clarity is power. Understanding the game does not mean becoming cynical. It means becoming intentional. It means making decisions with your eyes open. It means protecting your peace without abandoning your ambition. It means understanding that hard work matters, but strategy matters too. And in part 2, we're going deeper into what comes next. How do you actually build a career inside of that reality without losing yourself? How do you decide when to push versus pause? How do you choose ambition without becoming consumed by it? How do you build success without creating a life you eventually need to recover from? Because your career strategy should not exist without your life strategy first. And that's where we're going next. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with this conversation. And thank you for allowing this space to be somewhere we can start to have a more full conversation and not just a clipped version. If this episode resonated with you, as always, please share it with a friend or share it with someone that could maybe help them as they navigate corporate America. As always, thank you so much for the 5-star reviews and ratings on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and the thumbs up on YouTube. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to In the Middle. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend and click subscribe so you never miss an honest conversation about life in the middle. I'll see you next time.